Well, thanks for joining me this morning. This is Patrick Halstead, Qdabra Software. Today we are going to be doing InfoPath surveys again, part 3. We've been doing this for the last 2 weeks, so we're going to continue for a couple more weeks. And hopefully everyone is getting used to Link. We have made a change. A couple weeks ago we started using Microsoft's Link technology for our webinars, and it's not quite as easy as live meeting was, but live meeting is being decommissioned at the end of June, so we're rapidly making the switch over here. Appreciate your patience as we make that switch over. If you don't have audio, of course you can't hear me, and we will be uploading the webinar to YouTube after I'm done today. Our goal with these webinars is to give you some relevant, timely training, and it's real smoke and mirrors, so sometimes we have little gotchas here and there. We will be talking about surveys again. So last week we talked about the complex email form. This week we're taking that same email form, we're going to be uploading it to SharePoint, and we have a kind of a cool solution for you today. So once again, just to review best practices with surveys and InfoPath, you want to choose a data-driven design, and this is to save you time. One XSN instead of many, and that means less work for you to create it and maintain it. You're going to use 2 forms, one to create the questions, one to fill out the forms, and you'll see me with those forms again today. The questions will be then loaded into the main form, either on load at the very beginning or via secondary data source. We also want to make sure those questions are uniquely identified so that we can refer to them in conditions. Also, across surveys, if we have multiple surveys that have the same question, we might want to do some kind of a question report to identify which questions are the most efficacious or whatever. And we want to have a solution that will scale out to handle multiple survey takers as well as multiple people creating questions for those surveys. Okay, so last week we talked about the more complex email form. We added answer types, and we added conditional questioning, and we showed a technique for just sending the XML in email. This week we're talking about, I'm going to show a demo of how to configure your InfoPath form so that you can send out a copy to your survey users, your audience, and then receive those surveys and upload them to SharePoint. This is really the second bullet here. The first bullet, I'm going to also talk about this briefly and show you where you need to go to configure this. You can configure your SharePoint site. You can configure a form library to accept emails. And what I'm going to do is just show you this link real quick. Formotus is another company in the InfoPath space. They do a great job of mobile InfoPath forms. They've got a mobile viewer for iPad and for the smartphones. And they've got this blog out here, so I'm just going to reference them, give them a shout out here. So you can configure your email submit to go to a SharePoint site. What you do is you have to have SharePoint and your Exchange server living in your intranet, and you can go through this tutorial and do this configuration. Once you have it configured correctly, when you go to library settings on your form library, you'll see that there's an option in communications for incoming email, and you can set that up. And that means that when your customers, when your survey takers fill out the form and hit the submit button, their email will be sent to that SharePoint form library directly. And this is just a really nice technique. But it does require that you have hosted Exchange will not work. It requires on-site Exchange, and that's the main limitation. And that's why I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one today. I'm going to focus on the second technique, which is to use the admin desk. Now this technique can be kind of visualized here in this diagram. You're going to be sending a form out to your audience. These audience people may or may not be on your intranet. They might be people who are offline. That's fine. And then they will fill out the form in email, send it back to you or to somebody in your organization. And then those people will open up the form and they will click a button and upload it to SharePoint. Now what's cool about this scenario is you've actually using the same form in two different modes. The first form, your survey form, will be sent out to the audience and it will be in a restricted mode. Okay, so what does that mean? It means that the form, I'll show you this in a second, but it means the form can't have code in it, it can't do much of anything, but it can do email. And so they'll get that restricted form, they'll fill it out, and they'll send it back to you. You're going to be opening the form, but when you open the form, it's going to think it's not the same form. It's going to think it's your local version, and therefore it's going to enable you to upload to SharePoint. The restricted form by itself doesn't support uploading to SharePoint because it's restricted. So this is kind of a nice hybrid solution. It's a split solution, and we have documented this in the past. You can go through and you'll get the presentation materials, but here's Mel's blog from 2009. And basically I'm just going to be going through these steps here and showing you how to do this. I won't be going through all the nitty-gritty, but I'll be showing you the main thrust of this now with my demo. And I'm going to switch now to my screen. I've got, so what you're going to do is you're going to have these two forms. You're going to have private and public. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take that public form and you're going to right-click and open it in the InfoPath Designer. We're going to do this. I'll show you exactly how this is done here. So this is our form from last week. If we preview it, you'll see that we have V3 in the title. We need to make sure the title is better formatted because it's wrapping. But you can see here that I've got V3 in the title. You can see that, hopefully, that. That's my preview. Okay, so here's my form. Now, this is my restricted form that I'm going to send to people in email. So the first thing I need to do is go to File, Form Options, and check to make sure that that form has the right security settings. There you see the restricted there. So that's good. We've set the security to restricted. That means that I can send it to somebody in email. When they get it, they can fill it out. Okay, the next thing we need to check is we're going to actually change the name of the form. And you can see here it's Survey Filler Public. Now, you may not have seen what I just did, but I just went to the File tab and I clicked on this Form Template Properties here on the right. These properties control the identity of the form. And so notice that even if I change the name, the ID is not changing. So I need to change both of these. And this is the trick. As long as the form that we're sending to our audience, our email audience, the survey takers, as long as that form is the same ID as the internal form that we use to upload to SharePoint, then we've got a solution. But it's very important that that ID match. So essentially we're fooling InfoPath into thinking that we're opening a form, a different form when it comes in from the field. So once I've done this now, I can save this form out. I'm just going to save it over the survey filler. This is the form I'm going to send out to my customers. And I'm just going to overwrite that. Okay, and just go back to my template properties to make sure. See what happened here? It actually overwrote that ID. So you have to be careful here. The first time you save it, it's going to overwrite that ID with the date timestamp. That's if it changes. So what you have to do is you have to just change it again, save it, then make sure that it hasn't been changed that second time. Okay, so now we're good. So now I'm going to close this form. And I'm going to send it an email to my survey takers. And so I've got email here. You can't see it. It's on a separate window, but I'm just going to attach that form to an email. Just going to have people fill this out. Okay, so I'm just sending my form out here. Okay, now momentarily I'll receive my form. Now to show this demonstration, what I'm going to do is, first of all, I've received my email for the form, and I'm going to fill that out on a separate machine. And actually I might even ask Marcy to do that. But you can see here that I've got email here, just received my form, or there it is right there. Now this is my desk machine, so I'm not going to actually double click it on this machine. Because I'm not the user filling out the form. I'm the person that's going to be uploading the forms to SharePoint, the surveys. And so what I want to do is switch to my other machine. I'm going to try that real quick here. So bear with me while I switch to the other machine. Okay. Now you should be able to see my my email. Marcy, can you see my email?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm just going to double click on this form. There's my survey filler form. I just sent this out. So just pretend for a moment that I'm actually not myself. I'm somebody else in the field. But I've got two machines here. So I'm going to fill out this form. It's my survey form. I just sent this an email. So no problem. It's restricted. It's going to open just fine. So here's my form. I'm going to fill this out as the Acme Lumber Company here. Actually, let's change it. Let's change the name. We will be the ABC Television. Yeah, that's actually the real name of the company. Whatever. Let's see. Who should we be? Well, actually, here in Seattle, we've got King 5 News, and Jean Anderson is the main anchor person here. We all love her very much, and I don't know what her email is, but we'll just say test@qdabra.com, so we don't spam any public figures. And we're going to fill out our form. Just real simple here. Just this is our questions from before. It's just a sample survey. It could be more extensive, that's for sure. But you can see here that I've got a couple questions, and I can add that. Anyway, submit the form. Now it's going to submit an email, and it's going to submit it to the course manager. Hopefully. Oh no, it's going to submit to no. So I made a mistake. And I'm actually submitting it to the test person here, which is not going to work because I won't open it up again on my form. But that's how it'll look when you fill it out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to my other machine, and I'm going to fix that issue real quick. So with your public form, you should see my screen again. I'm just going to show you where that setting is. So we were testing this last night, and I changed a whole bunch of stuff, and I forgot to change the email area. So what do? Well, you go to Data Connections, and actually, to simplify this, rather than open the public again, which will require those other changes, I'm going to right-click and design the filler. I'll try to do that. Here we go. So. Okay, so this is the form we just saved. It's the public form. And what I need to do here is I need to set the data connection to email submit, make sure that that's sending to the right alias. We don't want to send it to Mel, we want to send it to course manager. Okay, and then we just save it again. And this save here should not overwrite the template properties, so let's go back and verify. It didn't, so we're good. Okay, so now what I can do is I can send that email again. So I'm going to do that one more time. Just drag and drop the form into the email. Take it to, send it out, and I'm going to switch to my other machine. Okay, you should see my screen now. Just got the Take 2 survey there. Okay, so now let's fill this one out again. And let's see, we'll pick another company name. So we'll pick Mama's Cookies. How's that sound? It's a little bit early in the morning for cookies, but we can always pretend. Customer's name is going to be Mama. This is silliness, but yeah, you get the idea. Whatever. We're just going to submit the form with some information in it. And now it's going to the right alias. Okay, great. So while I send that out, I'm going to switch back to my other machine. And I need to do step 2. So what I've done is go back to the presentation. I have Here's where we were. So we edited the public form, we renamed it, saved it as filler. We sent that form to our audience, and now what we're going to do as the admin desk, remember the scenario here, I'm going to be the admin desk, so I just sent that form out to my users, and now I need to go in and configure the private version. So I have another form here. This form is slightly different. This form, unlike the previous form, is actually not restricted because I want to upload these forms to SharePoint. So in this form here, if we look at it in the designer, you'll see that underneath File Form Options, I have this security set to domain. I should have it set to domain. Anyways, it definitely wants to be domain. And you can see here that I've got two buttons in. Oops, this is probably the wrong form. Let me. This is the public. Sorry, I must have clicked on the wrong form here. I want the private. Okay, bear with me. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so this is the right form. Okay, so here you see that I've got two buttons in this form. I've got a button to send to the email user again, but this submit button now is going to do something different. Specifically, the submit button is going to submit to SharePoint. Okay, so real quick then, I want to publish this out to my local machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the security first and verify that that is set to domain. It has to be domain. It's going to give me that SharePoint connectivity. And then I want to look at the name, and once again, I want to save this out as survey filler. We're basically using the same ID we used for the public version, and this is the trick. So we'll save it out as a filler, override it, make sure that it doesn't, and once again, it did change the ID, so you just have to go back, delete that, and resave it again. And that's the one trickiness about this whole solution. Okay, now we've got it saved, and everything should be just hunky-dory here. So I'm going to close this, and what I'm going to do is go into email, and I should have that email from my user there. You see that email, the survey came in from Mama there. Now what I'm going to do here on the right is I'm going to actually go in and create a new folder. And this folder is going to be an InfoPath Forms folder. And we'll just call it Surveys Take 3B. You see I've already got the surveys part 3 there on the right and the left. So now I've got this folder for my surveys, and I want to associate the InfoPath form with it. Now before I go to InfoPath Forms tab, I need to make sure that I've actually used the form before. So I need to go back and just double click on the survey filler. That's going to open up the version with the two buttons, which is what I want. Okay. And more importantly, it's going to cache the form locally. So now I can go in and I can actually associate that form with this folder. And when you click on select forms, you'll see that it's the one at the top there. It's the one I just touched, the 6822 one. Select that form. Okay, now what I can do is I can drag and drop that email or create a rule. Drag and drop that email into my survey, take 3B. And what's really nice is that those columns, those promoted properties come over. Okay, now what you're going to be doing is as a desk admin, you'll have a folder for all your survey forms. They're coming in. As they're coming in, you'll just double click them. And with any luck here, we get our form in Outlook, right? And now we can just submit to SharePoint. Now I've got a SharePoint site out there. Let me show you where that is. I need to VPN in to, our tester set this up on our VPN, which is fine. Just takes a second to connect to that. Now if I go back to my SharePoint site here, you'll see that yesterday when I tested this, I had two forms. So let's refresh this just to make sure the connection is there. We still have two forms, right? Switch back to email. I'm going to, okay, I've looked at the form. The survey looks good. I'll approve it. I'll hit submit. Submits it to the SharePoint site. Takes a second. Or two, or three. And we'll switch back to our SharePoint site, refresh it, and you'll see that it did not submit the form. There it is. Great. Mama's Cookies. We got Mama's Cookies up here. Now, for some reason, the icon isn't showing correctly. That's an issue I need to look into. But the key thing is we got the form up here. So I want to just refresh you here then, and I'm just going to switch off of the, let's turn the VPN off here. So what we did was we configured the public form. We sent that out as filler to our survey audience. We configured a private form locally that we used to double-click on the responses that came in email, double-click on them, and we uploaded them to SharePoint. So once again, here's the graphic. We sent out this form to our survey audience. They can be offline, doesn't matter. They don't have connectivity to our SharePoint site. And that's really the benefit here. Those people don't have to be authenticated. They don't have to have permissions to your SharePoint library. They filled out the survey. They sent it back to you. You then open up the survey form in Outlook and click a button to upload it to SharePoint. Now you've got all your forms in SharePoint. You can do workflows with them. You can do reporting on them, whatever you want to do. So that's the key value prop here, is that you have the split hybrid solution. And if you want more information, please feel free to go to our webpage, Contact Us site. And this is Qdabra.com, and you can go just to Contact Us. It should be at the bottom of the Qdabra.com page, but here's the link. If you send us feedback on this webinar, we will send you the samples for today. Next week, we're going to be doing part 4. We're going to take the form we've been working on one more step further and show you how to use browser-based forms in SharePoint and multiple SharePoint lists. So we're going to be actually taking all of those questions and pushing them into multiple SharePoint lists and loading those questions from an InfoPath form, actually from those lists. So we'll have multiple lists loading into an InfoPath form, and there's some cool techniques to do this. So anyway, thank you very much again for being with me and being patient today. If you have any questions, I do have a few minutes here, and I'm going to switch to the chat session. If you have questions, you should just put them into the chat session down below here. And while you're typing in your questions on InfoPath, it could be any question, right? We don't promise to solve world hunger, but we will answer any questions you have regarding InfoPath. And it looks like there are a few people typing. That's great. So once again, if you have questions, if you want to get the packet for today, we will be sending that out along with the presentation deck. All you have to do is go to Qdabra.com, enter your contact details, make sure your email is correct, and we will be able to send you those. And so we've got a couple of questions coming in here, and I'm just going to answer those and then stop the recording. Let's wait for a second here while we see those questions. Let's see, anything else going on? We are releasing a new version of Q Rules 4.2 here this week. We've got the beta on our website, and it has a lot of new features, new math functions. And first question from Evan Freiberg, will this function in the same in Office 365? Yes, that's the really good news here, is that this is a nice 365 solution. Office 365 has a bunch of different restrictions on it, but as long as your users have InfoPath filler, so they have one of those enterprise SKUs for Office 365, or they have already installed Office Pro, if they have InfoPath filler, they can fill out the survey. Next week we'll show you how to fill it out in the browser. There are some limitations around anonymous access in 365. Specifically, Microsoft obviously wants all of the customers to pay for a spot on 365. So the anonymous scenario with the browser is a bit challenging. But if they have the filler, you can definitely do the solution you saw today with 365, and you would then be the person uploading to the SharePoint site. So you'd have to have, of course, access to your 365 site to do that. A second question from Jania. For this option, the person filling out the form doesn't need to access SharePoint server, but they do need InfoPath, right? Yes, exactly. I just answered that. Sorry, I didn't see that. Ralph's got a question as well. Some of the questionnaires may need to be Spanish or English. Yes, we do have. I've done webinars on this in the past, and I'm just gonna. A great question from Ralph on multilingual capabilities. We did a webinar. You can go to the YouTube site several weeks ago. Let me just see if I can find it, where we showed you how to do multilingual forms, and I'm just going to see from all my webinars this year. Other people have been doing other webinars, so there's some gaps here, but I should have one called Data-Driven Design here, and in here we have a form that is localized. Let me show you this real quick. And I'm just going to open this up in the Designer. So this is the utility. This is in our Data-Driven Design. We're going to just open up the localized expense report here and show you this. This is a weird form. Like, well, you open the form in the Designer, there's no view labels. That's because we have multiple languages. If we preview it, you'll see that we have the ability to switch between English and Spanish here. So this is the same technique you're going to be using for your form. Assuming that you want to show in English or Spanish. The questions, of course, would be data-driven, so you'd have questions for English, questions for Spanish, just like we have labels here. We have labels for English. If I switch to Spanish, it switches, and we're only using one view. So the key here is that we're not copying our work, or we're not duplicating our effort over and over again here. We've got one form, multiple labels, or multiple languages, and we just switch those languages based on this drop down here. Same thing with questions. You can have the questions in English or Japanese or Spanish, and you can just switch the language. So that's easy to do, and I recommend that you look at our webinar. That was a webinar from what was it here? It was April 19th. So if you go out to the YouTube site, you should be able to take a look at that. And if you send us an email, we'll send you that packet there. I'll give you some ideas on how to do that. Another question from, an off-topic question from Evan here. Do you know when Office 365 will have the Get User Profile service? Great question. We have a workaround for you. It's called QRules. QRules will allow you to get the user information, and it works just fine with 365. In fact, I did show this back in February. You can go to our YouTube site and you can take a look at the February, what did I do here? I just lost my documents. We go to the February webinar. I showed a technique to do this with QRules. This was Office 365 Take 2. And we have a form in here, a Get User Profile, that works with 365 in the browser just fine. And anyway, you can take a look at this. March 1st was the date on the webinar. So great questions. I really appreciate your time this morning. And next week, hope to have you back here for surveys part 4. We're taking the surveys a step further, and look forward to presenting to you again. And have a great day.